Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Rags to Riches podcast. I have two special guests, Miss Angela and Miss Brittany. And today we are going to discuss about abusive relationships and how they survive. First, I would love to thank them for even coming on to even tell their stories because there's so many out there that's went through it and going through it, but afraid to let people know. So I definitely take my hat off to you guys for that. Um, First, I want to know what did you notice that started changing?
Uh,
Brittany?
with the person,
Yes.
um, I mean, at first they were nice, came off as Prince Charming, ready and eager to help out and do things. And maybe a couple of months in, once we actually started living together, that's when the flip changed. And it would be small things at first, like I took too long coming from the store,
Oh, wow.
or I was on the phone with somebody and I may have said something about him that he didn't like, and I just have fists coming at my face.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
what. So it just got worse and worse. Like it wouldn't be as bad at first. It'd be like a hit in the stomach, or you throw something at me, and then it got to where, okay, I won't punch you in your face because you have to be out in public, and I don't want to mess up your face, but I'm going to give you body blows. And I was in shock and in fear because I had girls and a son, and I didn't want seeing this. And my kids were terrified. They didn't want to be home. They were calling my mom, Grandma, please come get us. Please come get us. Like, we can't deal with this. I put him out. He'd break into my house. He, there was one time he tried to hit me with a hot iron
Oh, my
and
God.
burn me. I even had an issue where I traffic was heavy and I was coming home from picking my kids up from school, and I had to fight as soon as I got in the door because I took too long and I probably went to see some man on the side. So I had a gun pulled in my face.
Oh, my God.
And like when I say it got bad to where like I in order to get away, I tried to hit him with my car. I had to apply for apartments behind his back, and I finally got one. And the day that I was going to go and view the apartment, I didn't tell him, but I was trying to leave, and he ended up like he went to go see his mom, and that was my cue to leave before he got back. Or I thought he was going to see his mom. He was hiding around the corner.
Oh,
So when I got in the car to leave, he jumps in the passenger side. Where you going? And I'm not getting out this car. You're gonna take me with you where you going. So I ended up having, because it was an appointment, having to take him with me. And when we left, we fought the whole time in the car on the way back because he was mad that I was trying to leave him. And then it became the mind abuse, the emotional abuse. I'm gonna hang myself. I'm gonna kill myself if you leave me. Using those tactics, like it was just I had to get my uncles and cousins involved just in order for me to go to the house and remove all of my belongings and get out. And
oh,
it wasn't until he went to prison for things that he had been doing, like stealing, robbing, things like that, that like every time I would fall asleep, he'd steal my car. He'd be stealing and robbing and jacking in my car
oh, my God.
and would bring my car back in the morning. And then I noticed my TV's gone. My kid's game system is gone. He's pawning stuff. And then when I confronted him about it, beat me up because I said
Oh,
something.
wow.
So it was bad. And I was just like, that was the first and last time I had ever gone through something like that. And I think I was about 22, 23, so I was young. And it affected me. I didn't want to date. for a long time after that. And I was traumatized. I was traumatized. My kids were traumatized. Even till this day, they still talk about that. They hate him. They hate his guts. Like it's like I have to act like he was non-existent and
Right.
just keep it at that, you know. But I got out of it. I moved on. I blocked him, blocked his family out, and I moved from that apartment because he knew where it was. So I moved from there again, maybe a couple months later, to relocate somewhere else, and that was how I finally got away.
That's good. I'm so glad that you did get away from that. And it's bad that he would actually even do that in front of kids. That's like the worst. The worst thing to do is to abuse someone or their mother in front of kids.
Mhm.
That's something they would never get out their heads ever. And I am so glad that you got out of that, honey. Bless you.
Yes, it was stuff that I had never seen. Like he would even take it out on our dogs. It was
Oh
the day
wow.
he had on some Timberland boots. And when I say he literally kicked the dog ish out, he kicked the dog so hard that fecal came shooting out across the floor.
Oh my God.
Because
That
the
is bad.
the dog tried to jump in and save me.
Right. They're
And this
protective.
yes, and this is what he did to the dog. So bad that the dog ran away and never came back.
Oh,
So it was bad. It was
well,
very
I'm so
bad.
glad you are out of that situation, honey. Thank God. And thank God you're even here to tell this story. Like I said, so many people that need to hear it that are afraid to talk about it. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're here to talk about it. And Miss Angela, and how about you? Same question for you, Miss Angela. What did you know to start to change?
Um, well, let me give you a little bit of history before I answer that question. I I'm 54 years old. I was married to my husband for 20 years. And when we first met, we met in church. I was actually a member of his father's church. He wasn't a member, but I was. And we actually met at church and we dated, and then I got pregnant with my son. I had a daughter prior to knowing him. She was 12 at the time. And when I got pregnant with my son, he wanted to get married. And I had saw red flags before that, but because I was a single parent, for 12 years, I felt like, well, at least this guy want to marry me. I don't have to, do the single parent thing. So against my better judgment, I agreed. You know, I cared for him, but I can honestly say that at that moment, you can love somebody, but being in love with a person is a different thing. And I didn't feel that at that moment, but I was willing to work towards that. So while we were engaged, he moved in with me. I had my own place. I had a job, a very good job. I had moved. I'm originally from Indiana. I had moved to Dallas, and I had been there probably a little short of 2 years before me and him met. And so by the time he came into my life, I was already well established and saving and building credit because I wanted to buy a home. But he came in and he moved in with me, and I started seeing red flags before we got married. The temper tantrums, when things don't go your way, you want to slam cabinets and doors. Now, I never experienced, by the grace of God, physical abuse, but mine was more emotional and spiritual. And I'll talk about spiritual in a minute. Um, it was the mind games. And I did not know at the time that I was married to a covert narcissist. Back we didn't talk about narcissism 20 years
True.
ago. We didn't even know the term. And I always say I didn't really think about it until People was calling our former president Donald Trump a narcissist. So I started looking into it, like, what is this? And the more I started researching it, I realized, man, this is who I'm married to. The characteristics of narcissism. And so it was very emotional. Anytime somebody can wake you up out of your sleep to antagonize you with a conversation that's gonna constantly play in your mind, just the control and the manipulation of it all was very draining. So I started seeing signs of his temper. His temper was very bad. And the thing about covert narcissists is that they show a loving side of them. And that's what makes it tricky, because they can be very, well, you think they're being loving and kind and all of this stuff. And then it's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing, where
Mm-hmm.
in an instant, if something don't go right, or even it don't even have to be anything, it's just they change. And I dealt with that for 20 years, 21, over 21 years. Just the mind games and the manipulation. And I started seeing, while I was pregnant with my son, the anytime I didn't agree with him, there was a red flag. He would have a nasty attitude, or there would be yelling and name calling. And, it started off with those little things, and it just got worse over the years. So I have a powerful testimony, having been in that for 2 decades. It was tough, but by the grace of God, I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I have
Uh,
uh one of the viewers said that he was married to one and still dealing with it. And then I have a viewer that wants to know what was your fed up moment?
For me,
Both of you ladies, but you
oh,
go ahead, Miss Angela. Yes, ma'am.
um, my fed up moment was when I didn't recognize myself when I looked in the mirror. I had totally lost myself. I was constantly unhappy. I had gained so much weight just with the stress, eating constantly. Um, I was over medicating myself. I was just taking. I had gotten diagnosed with fibromyalgia back in 2007, and I was on medication called gabapentin, and it makes you very sleepy and
Hmm.
drowsy. And I was taking the medication even when I wasn't in pain, because I wanted to zone out.
Right.
And when I got to that point, I knew that I needed to do something different. And it took me about 2 to 3 years of planning to leave. I just didn't. You just can't leave a narcissist. It's
Right.
not that easy. But it took me some planning and some well thought out um, strategies to leave, but not just leave, but leave with my sanity and my peace. It can be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I um commend you as well, Miss Angela. I'm so glad you got out of that situation as well and able to give your testimony. Because again, a lot of people needs to hear it, because some of them actually think that they're the only ones in the world that's going through it when they're not. So thank you so much for sharing that as well. And for you, Brittany, what was your breaking point? What was your breaking point of that moment too?
um, the breaking point for me was the gun situation. That was like the last situation. Um, having to feeling like I had to fight for my life, and he could have pulled the trigger and shot me in the face because he had it pointed at my face. Like thinking about my children Did I want to be one of those women on the news that was murdered by her significant other? I didn't want that for myself. So that was the straw for me. And it was like it was like it was from God. The day after that was when I was able to move and have my family help me to gather everything and just get out of there. Like I was done. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I couldn't deal with it anymore. I had a safe place to go and I could leave.
Okay. Have any one of you ladies, ask you first, Miss Angela, have you ever tried to reach out to some of your friends or family about it, or you just kept it a secret, kept it inside?
Absolutely not. Being married to a covert narcissist, one of the most important things to those type of people is their reputation and their appearance and how they appear, and they want to keep their name looking good before people. And so I hid and protected him. You know, anytime I stepped outside of the house, it was all smiles. It's we're all good. On social media, I'm posting, the happy times. And sometimes when I look at old pictures, I look in my eyes and I can see just the sadness that I was really covering up. But no, and to this day, my mother's deceased. My dad is still living, but he doesn't know the trauma that I experienced. I finally opened up once I filed for divorce last year. I finally opened up and talked to my sisters about it and my best friends, but of course, my children knew a lot of it because they were in the house. But it's very important when you're in an emotionally abused relationship, especially a marriage to covert narcissists, it's very important to know how to cover that up. Because if you show any signs to anybody with outside of the house, if you show any signs that you're not happy in public, you're going to pay dearly for
Mm,
that psychological abuse. It wears you down. So no, I did not tell anybody. I did a lot of covering up for 20 years.
wow. How about you, Brittany?
I told people I didn't I was selective on who I said something to. Like, I told my mom because I would vent to her about the situation. And she was the one who was like, just bring my grandbabies over here. I might not have a place for you to live, but I have a safe haven for them to come to.
Absolutely.
And I didn't tell anyone until the last minute when I was done. I just needed help getting out
Absolutely. So, Brittany, how often did you hear that I'm sorry?
every single time, literally every day. Every day, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna do it again. You're a beautiful person. I shouldn't do this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And it's like, you're not sorry. Keep doing it. And it was like I had become numb to the sorries and I just wanted to leave. I just
Right.
needed my exit moment because I couldn't keep dealing with it.
Absolutely. Miss Angela, and same question to you. How often did you hear that I'm sorry?
Um, I would say 80% of the time there was a sorry, but there was a sorry, but it
Right.
was never a full, I'm sorry I did this. I'm sorry I said this. It was always a but. So when
And
you
that but always going to lead to
yeah, when you
your
have
your
but,
fault.
you canceled out your apology.
Right.
So, it really never happened. It really never happened.
Right. So, what would you tell um yourself now that you've been out of it, what would you say to yourself now?
Now, meaning what if I was to go back to that old person, or
Cor-
me now in this moment?
Now in this moment,
Now
because
in this
you've
moment,
been, yeah, you've been through that with that person. So yourself now, what would you say to yourself now, since you've been there and you know what it's like? So what would you tell yourself now?
heal, heal. You have to, in order to move on, if you want to pursue other relationships, not just romantic relationships, but relationships in general. I had to apologize. I have 3 adult children, and I had to apologize to my kids for a lot of things, and that I allowed, because I was such a coward in a lot of instances during this time. And so I would just tell myself to heal and forgive and love myself moving forward.
Absolutely. Brittany, and you tell yourself now.
Um, I don't know, because that is a really good question. Like, if I was that person back then talking to me now,
Hmm.
uh, telling me like about the situation, just learn from your mistakes, don't make the same mistakes, pay attention to the red flags and act on them. Listen to your gut feeling when it's telling you something isn't right, when you're feeling that. Mm, because I felt it from the beginning. Like, mm, I don't know if I even want to go this route. I wasn't sure, but let me give them the benefit of the doubt. Listen to your friends. When they tell you, don't get mad at them. Because a friend of mine knew this person and she was afraid to tell me about the person because she didn't want to ruin our relationship.
Right.
So
And a
I would
lot of
say
friends
listen.
think like that.
Right. So I would just say like listen to your friends. Don't get mad at them and shoot the messenger because you don't like the message. They're on the outside looking in and they see it, you know.
Absolutely. And did you feel like you had to stay because you loved him?
I stayed because I had nowhere else to go.
The love was
If
out the
I
window.
Yeah, the love wasn't there. The love was gone months, months prior to me leaving. I was in fear and I had nowhere to go. I had to really just stay there and bite my tongue and try to behave the best I could until I had a safe place to go.
Absolutely. I have a viewer, and he wants to know, did they always make you the blame?
Yeah, I was to blame for everything. Whether it was, oh, I'm cheating, I'm seeing someone else, I made him do this, I said something he didn't like. It was always me, 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 never him.
That's how you used to go. And Miss Angela, did you feel like you had to stay because you loved him?
My staying had nothing to do with love. My staying had to do with fear and worthlessness. Some When you're dealing with a person with narcissistic characteristics, they they are masters of making you feel like you are nothing.
Hmm.
And I went from being this independent, educated woman with my own life and job and money and car and home, and I did everything on my own, to the smallest of a little ant is what I felt like. And when you get to that point and you don't even love yourself, you don't love is not even in the equivalence. It's like you just staying because you're scared to leave.
Right.
I didn't have anything. Then I stayed partly because I wanted to make sure that I got my kids through school. I was like, if I can get them graduated, and then maybe I can, make my move. But I didn't, it wasn't about love, even though I did love him, don't get me
Right.
wrong, but I didn't love him the way that a wife should love a husband,
Right.
and that's unfortunate. But that's the position that I was put in because there was something that happened when my mom passed in 2006. I had left um, Dallas to go visit my mother for my birthday. It was in January of 2006. And while I was visiting her, she passed. So my husband at the time and my children had to drive to Indiana from Texas to come to the funeral. And the night that they got there, my ex-husband wanted to be intimate. My mom just died, 2 days
Right.
ago. And
Wow.
I wasn't interested to do that. And I was trying to gently, I had already learned how to talk gently. I was gently trying to tell him, my mom, who was my best friend, she just passed. I'm really not, in the mood. And he proceeded to call me a stupid bitch
Oh
2 days
wow.
after my mom died in my mother's house. So at that moment, any love that I had for him, it evaporated. And I was never ever, for the duration of the rest of our marriage, I was never ever able to get that back. I tried, but I wasn't able to because I lost so much of myself in that moment because that was just the most cruelest thing you could do to me was to belittle me in the midst of me grieving for my mom.
That's horrible. Sorry
Yeah,
to hear that about your mom as well.
thank you.
Um, and did he make you feel like everything that he done to you, you were the blame?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There were a couple of times when he would pretend to take the blame, but then there it would circle back around to me. But what happens with narcissists, if they don't get the help, which you can see every counselor in the world, if you don't get deliverance, those
Mm-hmm.
demons grow up with you. And so they get worse and worse over the years. And I had to learn that. Now, I've been to counseling since I've been through divorce and everything, and my children have been through counseling. But the narcissists themselves, they need to go through deliverance because that's the only way they're going to be free from that demon that controls and manipulates the people that they say that they love.
Right. Did counseling help any?
It makes you more aware, of what you've been dealing with. It makes you, it puts a name to the faces that you've seen. My ex used to physically change when that spirit would take over.
Mm,
He wouldn't look the same. And you see it in the eyes first. The rage comes, it was just a pattern that we got conditioned to living with. And I didn't have the courage to leave. That's just the bottom line. I didn't. When you are manipulated here, you don't think about having strength. There's no strength. You just deal with it.
mm.
So
And Brittany, have you had to go to any counseling?
I haven't. I haven't gone to any counseling, but it is something that I've thought about because that relationship did affect me in past, future relationships and my current because I have PTSD. So it made me get to a point to where I'm violent
Oh,
because I'm triggered,
right,
and before you get me, I'm going to get you. And now that's something that I'm dealing with, you
right.
know?
You were scarred.
Right. And it hurts. It really hurts to know that, this is my life now. That once sweet, innocent girl who loved everybody and who would give the shirt off her back is now so traumatized that it's hard for me to even open up and be around anyone because I'm afraid if they
Right.
resemble or remind me in any way, shape, or form, it could be a word that triggers me about that person. And then it's like I'm shut down. I might spaz out. So it's been a constant struggle. And then still, hearing my kids talk about it,
Right. I
I'll
mean, it
break
takes
down.
time. It takes time. Definitely takes time. I have a viewer that says emotional and mental abuse is still abuse. I definitely agree.
It is.
Definitely agree with that. So, have I know you said you've moved on, Brittany, with someone, and I know you probably moved on. You probably feel like anybody that you move on with would probably do the same. So you're so like you're just protective of yourself and your kids from it. Um, do he know what you've been through?
Um, Somewhat, not to the full extent. I've never really shared it the way I just did.
Right,
Um, I would, because I just couldn't sit there and, confess that to him.
right.
Um, so you know, it's been difficult.
Sorry to hear that. And Miss Angela, you have moved on too.
Yeah, I filed for divorce last June. Well, we separated last March, and I filed in June, and it was final in September. And
Okay,
so I left Texas, and I'm here in Atlanta, and started my life over with a new career. And I'm still going through the healing, but I can honestly say that I'm healing gracefully because I'm taking time to relearn who I am as a woman. I'm taking time to grow more spiritually and taking better care of my health, my mental, physical, spiritual health. So I'm blessed to be able to start this new journey. It was not easy to walk away. Even through all of that, I walked away with nothing. I had no money, no job, no car, no nothing. So for
wow.
me to be living the life that I'm living now is by the ultimate grace of God.
Yes, ma'am. Got to give it to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I know you both have kids. So, what are you teaching your kids? Even girls and boys, because men can go through it too. So, what are you guys teaching your kids about abuse?
Well, my kids grew up in that environment, so we are learning together. My kids are 33, 21, and 20. So we're learning and healing together and learning that to set boundaries with people is very important and that we control our narrative. When you've been under the roof of manipulation for so long, it's so easy to give people control of your narrative. So we're learning to make sure that we keep people in their proper place in our life. And just taking the time to heal is what I'm focusing on with me and my children. Not rushing into relationships, not rushing into making decisions out of emotions, but thinking things through, healing, doing a lot of prayer, a lot of spiritual growing, and just making sure that we love ourselves is at the top of the list for us.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. 100%. And Brittany, how about you? What are you teaching your kids?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much same thing. Don't accept it. Don't tolerate it. Just from the beginning, just learn how to have self-esteem, a higher self-esteem to where you don't lower yourself to accept someone else's baggage.
Absolutely. And if you had to give any encouraging words to anyone who's out there going through similar situation, the same situation, or even worse situations, what would you tell them?
Get out. Get out as soon as you can. Find a way, hide. Don't let them know your new space. Because I know some people they mess up with that. Oh, I'm just going to my mom's and do you know where your mom stays and come and shoot you, you know? So I just advise get out and get away. Like you're in witness
Absolutely.
protection.
Absolutely. Because they do have places for battered women.
Mm-hmm. The
And
Springs or mhm,
I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely say, and a lot of times we would keep whatever's going on bottled in when we really do need to tell someone. I know it's hard because you don't know if that person will go back and say something or it'll get back to that person. So you're afraid to talk about it or talk to someone about it. But I would definitely say talk to someone about it, most definitely. And you, Miss Angela, um, what would you tell someone that's going through similar, the same, or a more difficult situation than yourself?
Don't be afraid to walk away and restart your life. I am on a campaign for to reset. It's so funny because when I was, setting up to do this interview, I brought my laptop down here and it needed to reboot. And it took a couple of minutes, and I was like, okay, hurry up because you got to go through. And it kept saying 30% and 40%. And I'm looking at the clock like, but it needed to reset so that it can work effectively and properly. We need a reset in our life too sometimes.
Absolutely.
And so you need to get past that fear. That's the first step of walking away. Don't worry about things and money and what people gonna say. Just love yourself enough to take that first step and to walk away and to start over. That's what I call the reset. God will give us the
Absolutely.
grace to do that, but we have to
Hmm.
have enough faith to believe that we can.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. Ladies, thank you so, 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 so much for coming on and even giving you guys this testimony and giving the viewers a chance to really see what what goes on out there and not to be afraid to tell someone to talk about it, because you never know who you're helping. So I definitely want to thank you ladies so much. Um, and guys, y'all go follow Miss Angela. She's gonna be getting her podcast back up again. I hope real soon.
Yes.
And y'all definitely go follow Brittany. Um, Brittany, do you have a podcast?
I do on Clubhouse.
Okay. Okay.
Clubhouse
So,
app. So I do have salon talk on there that I'm trying to get
all
started on.
right.
Yeah,
Hey. I don't
just
know how to do
talk.
no hair now. My little sister know how to do hair. It skipped
Yeah.
me. But y'all guys definitely go follow these beautiful ladies. And again, I want to thank you ladies so, so, so much for coming on to even share these stories.
Thank
And I'm
you.
so glad that you ladies survived it.
Yes.
By the grace of God.
Hallelujah.
Yes, yes. So thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you, ladies, for being a part of it. We definitely
Thank
gonna have to
you.
do this again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, you guys, y'all have a nice night. Peace.
You
Thank
too.
you,
I'm
Sheila.
cooking this
Bye.
dinner.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.